Jamie Shevchik. I'm the head baseball coach at Keystone College. I've been there for 20 years. I'm also the manager of the Brewster Whitecaps in the Cape Cod League.
I'm Ryan Wheeler, the associate head coach at St. Joe's University, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and had some stops along the way at College of William & Mary, University of Richmond, and I was also the head coach at Temple University.
Hey guys, Mike Marron, pitching coach at Old Dominion in Norfolk, Virginia. Just finished up my 5th year here. Prior stops, I'd been at Stony Brook University for 6 years and UMass Lowell for the 4 years prior to that. Excited to be here.
What's up, guys? It's Vic Diaz at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. Finishing my 2nd year here. Prior stops to here were Kentucky Wesleyan after finishing my playing career at Old Dominion, and then went back to Old Dominion as a volunteer. Excited to be here and hopefully good information here.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. Like we were talking about before we got on, I don't even know some of these answers. So really excited to hear your input and get some actionable advice for whether they're players, whether they're families, or even whether they're college coaches. Because I'm sure with the news of yesterday, we're all still trying to figure things out. So we're gonna cut right to the chase. It's been a rough spring for baseball, and it looks like the summer is going to start off kind of in the same vein. The NCAA decided that they're going to extend the dead period basically to the end of July. So let's talk about how that's going to impact basically your recruiting plan for the summer. And Chev, we'll start off with you. All right. So you're in a little bit different of a boat, obviously.
Yeah, I'm in a much different boat than these guys. I'm not sure how the dead period works, if it's the same with Division I and II, but there is no dead period for Division III. So anything that is happening, whether it be tournaments or showcases, we're certainly allowed to attend. At this point, we're not even sure what events are even going to happen at this point, like we talked about before we just got on. But we're open. We're open to, I don't know how this is going to affect, the turnouts of kids now, competing and showcasing in front of a bunch of junior college guys and Division III guys, if that's going to be the draw. I know there's been talks about live streaming a lot of this stuff, and I'm curious to see how this, how this impacts not just this year, but now live streaming a lot of these events. And I'm sure a lot of these guys can talk about that moving on in the future.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I feel like the common theme from the spring here has been, I have a lot of conversations and talk about a lot of things. And at the end, I don't have any answers. And it just feels like there's been a lot of moving parts, but still no answers. And even though we kind of knew this decision was coming yesterday, or we knew a vote was coming and which way it was going to go, we're still trying to figure out on the fly, I feel like, how to deal with it. And, I think we're going to get into discussing whether there's going to be events, whether live stream, how we're going to recruit, so on and so forth. But, the news yesterday, I think, hurt because it seemed like the rest of the country there was some optimism out there. Things were opening up, restrictions were being loosened, and we just thought maybe the NCAA would follow suit and say, okay, we're going to allow you to start getting back out there to watch some players and do your thing. And, to get the news that they shut us down for another month, I think it's kind of disheartening.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it didn't really come as a shock to most people, but I think we're all kind of holding out for some optimism. I'm Mike and Vic down south. Did you guys get the same feel as Wheels, or is it different down there?
No, I think it is, and it's tough across the country right now, right? Like it's not easy anywhere, regardless of geography. And so, yeah, I mean, we're kind of, everybody's in scramble mode, right? We're all trying to make sense of this, and then trying to problem solve and come up with some solutions to help us. And, like how much do we, the calendar, the schedule, everything that we think we have that is set up is, you're constantly, crossing out and adding and subtracting, doing all those things. I mean, it just is what it is. And we're working with, as coaches, we're working in real time with players, with families, with coaches, and, from travel teams, just like, we're trying to use all the same information that they have. We don't really have anything, ahead of time that they do. We're waiting for that same stuff. NCAA sending that out on Twitter, and, we're getting that the same as everybody else is. So we're just trying to make the best of it. Hey, what doesn't change here to me is relationships you make with people, the relationships you make across the board here, and your ability to communicate. I think, that's what's still now more than ever is important. And that lays your foundation in terms of how you're going to go out and recruit, because that's all we can control. We don't know the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, for us down here in Florida, we're, I guess you would say, a little more fortunate than some of the other guys, just because we're in phase 2, what they say, down here, and things are opening up. There's tournaments that are going to be played. There's, I know tournaments are starting to be played this weekend, showcases this weekend, and summer ball is going to be going for college summer ball down here. So right now, as of now, for us, Division II, we haven't been told that it's extended to July 31st. So we're still till June 30th, and I don't know what's going to happen, but usually we follow suit with Division I. But I think what Mike says is right, and that's what I've been thinking about that before I got on this call today. And it's like, during this time, we can really only control one thing, and that's the relationships that we're building and what's important now, right? And I think it teaches us all how to prioritize our recruiting better, and kind of really be more engaged in those relationships that we're creating with those players, instead of microwaving the process too much, right? So I think it's a way of showing us, okay, players are learning how to understand what they want and figure out what's important for them. And for us too, I think that's the biggest part of this time. How do we build better relationships and engage in them better?
Yeah, I think those are really good points, especially the relationship piece. Like, yeah, I think the days of showing up to Domination and knowing the schools would just be there, not because you know them, just because it's a good place to recruit, are going to be done for the next couple of months. So, being able to call a coach and have him trust your word, trust some video that you send him, will really be impactful. So even though we just got this news last night, I imagine you guys have been thinking about it, just hearing that it was a possibility for a while now. So let's start with the D1 guys. How do you guys plan on attacking this summer, attacking June and July, knowing that you can't physically go out and recruit? So Wheels, why don't you kick it off?
All right. Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're still trying to get our hands around it. I think Mike brought up the break one relationships. We're still going to continue to get emails and videos from kids, and certainly the ones that we've been talking to. We're going to have to, trust those videos and look at them a little bit differently than maybe we have in the past. I know, up until now, we've been hopeful that we were going to be able to get back out, so we've just been kind of, I think, keeping the recruits on hold, and we'll get to see as soon as we can. But now that's going to change. I know, in talking to some different people, that live streaming is something that different events are looking to put into place. And, there are rules that apply to live streaming for us, but, for the most part, as long as that event's delayed or recorded, we're going to be able to watch it. So, now we're going to have to sit down and kind of figure out which events are being live streamed and which ones, are we going to jump into and try to watch. But, I think it's going to be harder to make decisions, just off of watching guys on videos or off of live stream, but it may be what we have to do. I can't say that I've got the exact answer. I know I spent about 3 hours this morning talking with Coach Hamburg, just about our thoughts on that and how we want to proceed. And, I don't think we came up with a clear answer yet, but, we recognize that that's probably how we're going to have to do things and make decisions is off of seeing videos and live streaming.
I'm with Wheels on that. It's gonna, regardless of division or regardless of program, you're going to be challenged with what your recruiting philosophy was, what you prioritized, what you valued, what you thought, hey, these are the boxes I need to check. We probably got to maybe create a new list, right? Or the boxes that we felt like maybe were the most essential things, you know, we have to, you know, at least have conversation about, like, because it's not as normal, right? Like the live streaming, the delay streaming, whatever you want to call it, like that's going to time. It's also, you know, potentially going to open up some opportunities in the fall, maybe that weren't there before. You know, and you also got to get creative in terms of, you know, hey, you're, again, the communication, like Zoom is a new asset that, you know, maybe wasn't out there before. And now for recruits family, for their interactions, for our ability to interact with them, whether they're going to be a good fit, like all those things, are still there and necessary in terms of how we evaluate guys. We just have to maybe get a little bit more creative in terms of, you know, how we go about doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think,
go ahead, Vic.
No, I was gonna just follow up with that. I think as far as just preparing for it, I mean, I guess the one thing that can come about is you can watch multiple games at once on the live stream, right? But you can only see so much. But as far as for us and how we're preparing, we're just gonna map it out how we do every tournament and try to pick up as many games as we can. And I think what these guys said was really good. But I would, the only thing that I would say is I guess that's a positive, you know, being able to watch multiple games at once, but there's definitely going to be some challenges with it.
Here, Spange, I got a question. Obviously, we keep hearing the words, the new norm, or what it's going to be like. And we've all made adjustments or institutionally over the past few months. I'm curious to see of what the future is going to look like right now with a lot of these events, if they are going to be live streamed. Does that even the playing field across the board for the amount of kids that are able to be recruited or are recruited? Does it give guys advantages, the smaller budget guys, to see more kids? And is it going to be more of a draw now to a lot of these kids being able to, you know, now be seen by people across the entire country? Is this what it's going to be like in the next year or in the future like this now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that or you guys at least, are going to be forced to start evaluating and trusting video more than ever. And I think that the fact technology is coming about, you know, between TrackMan, Rapsodo, all that stuff, you know, it might be curious to see if events are a little bit more regionally based and colleges from across the country are watching video. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Like, can you see, you know, the bigger national tournaments starting to go away now that you guys are being forced to think about not recruiting live? Looks like a tough question.
Think about what Synergy did to professional scouting. Initially, you know, it made a lot of people lazy, and but a lot of professional baseball scouts have been doing their job from, you know, on their laptop at home and don't get out of the house anymore to actually see players. And I think what I'm afraid of, especially at the higher levels, is this is what it might become. The same track that those professional baseball scouts took with Synergy now becomes watching guys on, you know, that are live streamed on certain events.
No, I think that's a great point, and especially when I'm sure you guys are worried about your budgets. How nice would it be able to say, you know, I can cut my recruiting budget down $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 this summer because I'm just going to watch games live. Can you guys see that potentially happening? Or do you think there's always going to be that need to go watch guys live? Mike, what do you got?
Wheels, I think you had something you were going to – I'll pick you up. No? All right. I think that – listen, I think things will – there'll be a shift, right? Like, will things fundamentally change? I don't know. I don't know if we have the answer. But, like, I think there will be a shift. I think there will be more, like, there will be more of these. Like, I don't know if it's – like, I think the reality is going to be that's probably, you know, that's going to be more of a presence, right? The streaming opportunities is probably not going to be something that's just around for this year. Like, I think there will be more opportunities, more avenues as Chev said, to be recruited across the country, to be recruited by a higher volume of people to see you. And I think as live streaming improves, right, the quality of it, you know, not just one stock camera, but I know that everybody's heard this, you know, the investment that people are making that into this, like, I think it's just going to keep getting better. And so I don't know if it makes it easier. I think it makes you more accessible. I still think that there's the same fundamentals need to apply. How you use it, I don't know, but like same fundamentals of, okay, we see a guy, like you mentioned synergy. We're able to see junior college guys, you know, if we want to recruit them, like there's some guys that we have access to now to see them on video that we didn't have before. That's great. But we still need to be able to put some context into what we're seeing, right? We still need to be able to evaluate and have a relationship with the player. We still need to be able to have a relationship with the coaches and the people that have been around them. And I think maybe now, like, that the live streaming opportunities are there, it maybe even makes it more of a priority that we're doing our homework, right? And so if you're smart, you're having to spend time. Yeah, it might be easier, more accessible to be able to watch guys live, but it actually, like, it's going to force us to be able to, you know, invest more time conversationally to be able to find out more about this person, right? More about him, not just as a ball player and what he's doing, you know, on video, but how he is as a human. And there's going to be, you know, ways to work through that, and we got to figure out how to do that efficiently.
Boy, that was great stuff right there. Look, I think technology forces the issue and forces change. And so I do think there's coming out of all this, there's going to be changes to how we recruit. But I don't think it's going to flip from, you know, from coaches being, you know, at events to nobody being there now and everybody watching it on live stream. So I do think you're going to have coaches show up, and, you know, there's still things, you know, for example, for me, you know, there may be angles and things that I want to see that I can't see from the cameras that they've got for a particular event. And I want to move around. Plus, you know, I want to be there to see some things that maybe the cameras aren't catching, to try to learn about that player. And then look, there's just something to be said for just being at the event, and just being there in person so that the kid knows you're there. I mean, everybody can watch from their computer. But, you know, if he actually got his car, took enough time to come to this event to see me, you know, back to the relationship piece, it could help. But I do think there's going to be some change, and maybe, you know, 15 years from now, maybe that's the way it goes, and nobody's showing up at events, and you just go play and it's taped and stuff. But Mike, you brought up a great point. I think it's probably going to force us to work more hours, because all these events, they're going to be taped. Now you can go back and watch them whenever you want. So now you can spend all day at the event, one event, and then go home and watch another event that's been taped and cataloged. So we don't have to sleep at all.
Yeah, Wheels, you brought up a good point. And I want to go back to something you said about the rules. So what exactly are the live streaming rules for you guys?
So we are not allowed to watch an event live as it's happening. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but that's the way our compliance director, you know, gave us the rules. Yes. That we can't watch it live. So, you know, what organizations or events are going to do is they're basically they're either going to record it and then we can watch it, or they're just going to put it on delay. And I guess as long as it's delayed by a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it may be, well, then it's not considered live, so we can watch it. So, but to just get an invite, and forgive me, I'm not great with technology. In fact, my daughter had to show me how to do something on Instagram, watch something live on Instagram. But, you know, to get an invite to watch something live on Instagram, or you know, we just can't click on it and tune in and watch it. That's not allowed.
Vic, do you know if you guys have any rules regarding live streaming? Chev, I know D3's got nothing, right?
None.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have any rules regarding the live streaming yet, at least that I know of. But I'm sure something will come up about it soon.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And D1 guys, can the volunteers watch games?
That's a good question.
I'm sure there's rules against it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's rules against it. I don't know, and that's your Pandora's box that you're opening with some of these things that come along, you know.
And I'm, going back to this, watching it live, that's during the dead period when we're not supposed to have any face-to-face contact with prospects. If this was open during an evaluation period, when open evaluation and contact period, I think then we could maybe watch it live. The discussion I had with our compliance director was, I said, well, what if the local CBS station wanted to broadcast an American Legion game live? You're telling me that because we're in a dead period, I can't watch TV and watch the game live? I mean, I think that's ridiculous. But
wow,
I do think that, and you guys have all seen this, throughout this time period, each week different scenarios and different things come up, and the NCAA keeps sending out clarifications. And I think it's up to 43 different pages now of sort of question and answers to a number of different things that have come up. And so I'm sure there's going to be live streaming questions that come up. One of the questions that I posed to our compliance director was, I said, look, if 10 different events are moving to live stream, they're going to want to make sure that we're tuning in. What if they offer to pay us money to watch these? Are we allowed to accept it? But that's going to happen because they're going to want coaches to watch, so we may be offered. So I don't know. He didn't have the answer, neither do I on that.
Yeah, and I can tell you that's something that we've talked about internally. So that is definitely coming down the road for you guys. So you might be paid to watch TV pretty soon. Not a bad gig.
D3 guys too?
Probably not, Jeff. Probably not. Obviously this is the big thing everyone's talking about. I think one of the X factors that's coming down the pipe in a couple of weeks is the draft. The MLB draft being cut by 80% is going to impact recruiting, impact programs for sure. I mean, Chev, you have some experience with it from the Cape level, and you're I think have an interesting viewpoint because you're not directly affected. How do you see the draft and a bunch of players that thought they were being taken, not taken, impact college baseball?
Yeah, I think what it's going to do just for the Cape is what made the Cape great is you always had a lot of mid-major guys who came in on temporary contracts and ended up sticking around for the entire summer and had really good careers or really good seasons. Think about Mason Black, the kid from Lehigh who comes in as a temp and starts in the All-Star game. I think with the uncertainty of the draft over the next few years, I think managers are going to be less likely to take those mid-major kids because we're going to take more shots at now the potential 21st rounder or the 22nd rounder, a lot of juniors who are probably going to end up going back to school. I think it's going to hurt some of the recruiting in those mid-major kids when it comes to summer baseball at that level. Plus, with everybody getting their year back, everything is filtering down. Everything is working its way down into Division II and certainly into Division III as well. We are benefiting from it, but this is something that's going to be a little bit of a mess for the next couple of years until it works itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I don't know if you three have players that think they're going to be drafted or maybe senior signs. Can you talk about how this could potentially impact your programs? Vic, you want to start us off?
Yeah, right now, there's a couple guys that I know a couple scouts have reached out about, but I think the way it impacts our level in particular is just, I think you may see more guys sign for, $20,000 now and the free agent deal because teams aren't spending as much as they normally would through 40 rounds. So I think that's how it's going to affect our level where more guys are going to take that chance and not want to come back to school. So from the top 5 round standpoint, I don't know how it really is going to affect us personally, but for us, I just think the free agent stuff may affect us at some point and affect our level.
For sure. So, Mike, the one thing that I've been curious to see, and I'm not sure if you guys have experienced it or not, but some of your better recruits, some of your top guys, do you foresee them going junior college and not coming to you now? Or do you think that they're safer with you because it's going to be tougher for them to actually get drafted in the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's fair. I mean, but Chev mentioned it. Like, there's a trickle down effect, right? Like, there's this is impacting everybody, and not just excuse me, not just us, but it's affecting like rosters in junior college too, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys, a lot of really good players that are still going to be out there and available, and until we know the philosophies of what these organizations are going to do in terms of how they draft and then how they use that free agency opportunity, we're not going to know what those numbers are, right? Like, this is all just speculation until 30 pro teams actually go through this in a couple weeks. And we're not going to know. I mean, you might have some organizations that are going to spend a bunch on free agent guys, right, and think there's a high number of value. And then there's going to be some others that might not spend at all, and somewhere in between. Like, we don't know that. I don't think we know that yet. I don't think even the organizations, not to speak for them, but I'm not sure, how this is all uncharted territory. So, that's under the old model of, hey, like, I can go to junior college and be available for the draft the next 2 years. I don't know if that necessarily, it could, but I don't know if it necessarily guarantees, that the next year's draft is going to be that much more available for them to be able to, to get a better shot, or that the financials, like, everybody's working through financials right now. Nobody knows what that looks like, for this year or upcoming, really. So I still think there's a lot of uncertainty there. And I think there's a lot of value to being able to find a place that you can call home, and that means different things to different people, but being able to have some certainty right now is something that I think is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wheels, I know you guys don't go into the junior college market too heavily, but how do you see this potentially impacting your class, whether it's this year or next year, if at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to go back to the draft, I mean, the question that we've been asking sort of in our office is, how many free agents are actually going to sign with no minor league baseball? Like, where are these guys? They can sign them, but where are they going to play, and what are they going to do with them? And I think Mike brought up a great point is, just depends who values, those guys, maybe getting them on the cheap, see how they pan out as compared to holding off and waiting. But I think the other piece that needs to be solved from the major league level standpoint is, are they even playing the season? They're trying to work that out. And if they can't work it out to play their season, well, then that's going to impact them financially, and that'll trickle down to how much they want to spend in the draft, so on and so forth. So, we've got a senior sign type pitcher that we'd love to have him back. But, I mean, he's been contacted by 20-plus clubs, and we feel like we're going to lose him. But we're just not sure, which way it's going to go. So as for the junior college, I mean, these guys talked about it. There's a trickle-down effect. And, we did have one of our incoming freshmen player out of Texas that is going to stay back in Texas for a year, go to junior college, because we've got returning players that were on our team that we thought were going to graduate, and now we've just got a backlog at that position. And rather than take the red shirt year with us, he's going to try to play down there. And hopefully, we're able to get him a year from now. But those guys that are going to the junior college level, and one of the things that we tried to advise him was that they're going to have large numbers there. So you still got to make sure you're good enough to get on the field. And whether that's for just the play or for the draft, like, if you're going there, but they've now got 47 or 52 guys on the roster, well, you got to be one of the 9, 12, 15 best, to be able to get on the field. So, I don't think it's an easy question to answer, what's the right move? What should you do as a player? Go to junior college? Should I wind up going to a 4-year school? And then with the draft, how many guys are actually going to go, because where are they going to play? What are they going to do?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. And I know we have a couple guys who train with us who are juniors in college before this started. So it doesn't make sense for them to sign when they're not going to play this summer.
Right.
And they could potentially return, still be a junior, and then they could actually potentially return again. So I think it's pretty crazy. And I guess the one thing I'm curious about, and you guys can weigh in here, I think the programs, the bigger top 5, 10, 15, 20 programs in the country that recruit classes that are between 15 and 20 guys, they're the ones that are really going to be impacted by this draft, because I'm sure they're planning on some of their players going in the draft and some of their incoming players going in the draft. And now all of a sudden they might have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys who are really good, who are now all coming. I mean, Vic, especially with you being in Florida, is that something you guys have talked about? Like, do you expect some phone calls after the draft with guys not having homes anymore?
Yeah, we from the transfer side of it, we've kind of been saying that we may expect some of that stuff just because the rule, you know, the ruling that's coming out about the whole one-time transfer deals and all that stuff. But we've talked about it a little bit. I think Mike said it well. There's just so much uncertainty. Like we honestly don't know what to expect right now. So I think we're just trying to stay up to date with all of it and wait it's a waiting game, right? And see how it really affects. But I think it will affect it from the transfer standpoint. And I think more guys are going to be reaching out and trying to find a home for next year. And again, that affects us too, because we're trying to keep a roster size at a certain limit. So it's figuring out if we do have room for some of these guys.
For sure.
Yeah.
Chev, you've always done well in the transfer market.
The month of August is going to be, I mean, we saw a transfer portal boom over the last 3 months, obviously, but I think from August 1st to August 15th, it's going to skyrocket again. And it's certainly going to skyrocket over Christmas break. Because the next couple months are going to be, there's so much uncertainty on what's going on. And like those kids that don't sign and end up going back. I mean, I've talked to a handful of my guys from the summer and they have no idea what their future is going to look like. If they don't get drafted or don't get a chance to sign, there might not even be a home for those guys or scholarship money available for a lot of those guys to go back to school. And I think you're going to see a spike in the portal, you know, from August 1st to the 15th, and certainly again, once we get through the fall.
Yeah, that's really interesting timing, actually, which kind of makes it awful for you guys because that's also when you can actually get out on the road to recruit again. So, Mike and Wheels, are you guys taking that into account? Are you not trying to pull the trigger too quickly on some 21s?
I think, go ahead, Wheels.
No, I was going to say, yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, earlier we talked about how is recruiting going to look through the summer with live streaming and everything. And I think as recruiters, we always feel the pressure. You know, it's like a game of poker, you know, and who's going to play what card and who's playing their hand first and how long do you wait to show your hand. And so I think you have to exhibit some patience in all of this. But how patient can you be before, you know, you run out of options? So we've talked about it. You know, we think there's going to be another spike in the transfer portal because some things aren't going to work out in the draft, and all of a sudden programs are going to have to make decisions to get rid of some guys to get within their 35. And so what's out there? But then there's going to be another spike probably in the fall or the winter. And so, you know, how fast do you need to move on 21s, or do you wait to see what's out there and come along? I mean, those are good questions. I don't have the exact answer, but certainly it's something you have to take into account. You've got to be patient, but you can't be too patient and wait forever. So that's just a program decision, and based on what you think is important, how good you think your relationship is, how good you think you've evaluated the guy, and just how comfortable you feel that they're going to be a right fit. All that stuff is going to factor into it as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting to think about it from the, you know, we've all been there at a younger age in terms of going through the recruiting process, right? So, it's not just necessarily the numbers, but I think it forces players, it forces families to evaluate a little bit of their process, right? Whatever we think, everybody, you know, if you ask what the best fit is, right? Like, we're going to find a place that, you know, is the best fit. Okay, well, that's going to mean something different to each guy. I think this kind of situation we're going through right now is really forcing everybody, I think, to have that honest conversation. What does it mean? You know, what's the best fit mean? You know, is it opportunity to get on the field early in your career? Is it location? Is it a combination, you know, school and program? Like, what are the priorities that you're really like? Those are the honest conversations that I think everybody has the answers maybe before, but you had a little bit more wiggle room, I guess, in the past, right? You could work through a little bit. This is going to, I think, just force everybody to be honest, from a player side of things. What does it mean? What does the best fit mean for me? And then from, a program standpoint, like, how are we constructing our rosters? How are we building out our programs, and what do we value? And how is that going to be affected by what we're working through here?
For sure. And Mike, since you brought us back to the 21s, let's get back into recruiting for this summer. So we just went through the draft. I want you guys to pretend like you have a team of 2021s. What kind of schedule would you put together? Or what kind of advice would you give these guys in order to help them find homes that they're going to stay at, for 4 years? So Chev, let's throw this up to you first.
I think it's just understanding the situation that of where we're at right now with college baseball in general. They're going to have to pick a school and find a home. What is their priorities are going to be? Finding a place to. I don't think we can do it for Twitter anymore. I don't think we can do it for social media anymore. I think we need to really prioritize of the decisions that these kids are going to make on where they're going to school, and they need to be well informed by the organizations, by their coaches, of what their roster sizes are going to look like and what the next couple months are going to look like. Because a lot of the kids that you see right now, these 2021s are going to be the portal kids in the next couple of years, the majority of them, because the decisions that they're going to make and the choices that they're going to make, they can't do it for reasons that we've all seen on social media for the past couple of years. They're going to really have to start doing their homework, and they're going to have to get some really good advice, some solid advice of what their futures are going to be like and where they're going to decide to go to school.
Mike, you want to piggyback off that?
Sure. I mean, we didn't go in the bios, but I mean, how many regionals has, like, let's look at freaking win-loss record of Keystone College baseball, right? The last X amount of years. I mean, you want to talk about, like, if winning is important to you, how do you not consider a program like that, right? Like, if winning is truly a value of high importance, and I want to be a part of a winning program and a winning culture, like, is that, like, my priorities are, if my priorities play Division I baseball, or like I can go to a place where I know I can get a chance to play and win. Like, those are the things that I think, the conversations need to be had. And I think that's in a good way. Again, if we're always trying to spin things and put a good turn on it, I think those can be really constructive conversations and kind of help build out a little bit better kind of roadmap for recruits moving forward, because that's what it's going to come down to. Those types of priorities are going to be essential. And so, I mean, if you're talking about, hey, if you're 2021, what kind of schedule do you want to play right now? Like, you need to go and figure out what field that's open wherever you are and start playing, right? Because, even when things open up for Division I August 1st, we don't know where they're coming from in terms of how much they've done, how much they've been playing, where they are, and they're kind of leading back up into game shape. So the more that they get, like, building out a schedule right now where they can get on the field and play again, is the most important thing, I think, for me. And then we'll figure out the rest of it. But for those guys, getting out, getting a chance to play, getting an opportunity to get the competitive juices back and flowing again is, to me, the number one most important thing that they can be doing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy to hear all these pro sports organizations talking about needing spring training, needing a couple weeks for these guys to get back in shape, and then for youth baseball to just want to go out and travel down to Florida or Texas and play a ton of games. So, Wheels, I mean, you have a kid who's starting to get to the age where he's probably starting to sweat the whole college thing. What advice would you give him for the month of June?
Well, just like everybody, he's been trying to do the best he can to stay in shape and stay on top of his game. But 2.5 months of just doing drills and working out and playing catch with dad or your brother, doesn't cut it. So you're right. It's funny that professional teams are talking about spending time training to get themselves built back up in order to play. But yet youth sports, there's a certain state opening next week and there's a tournament down there. Yeah, we're going to go play. So, I mean, look, my son was disappointed when the high school season was canceled. We had to deal with that, but we've gotten over that. And now maybe he's a little bit privy to inside information because of, what I do. And when he hears that things are getting canceled or that we're shut down from recruiting, it's tough. I mean, he asks me every day, when do you think we're going to play? When do you think I'm going to get back on the field to even practice? So he understands the value of practice because that's been kind of drilled into him from me. But yeah, I don't think he knows what to expect and what to do to prepare because he doesn't know when he's going to play either. And it's tough. But I do think that they need to take some time to train and as a team and to get back on the field and play some scrimmages, play some inter-squad games, whatever it might be, just to get the juices going and get the at-bats before you put yourself in front of coaches. Maybe it's a good thing that we can't go out for 2 more months because still states are opening up and I mean, I know here in Pennsylvania, we can't practice yet. Those teams can't practice, or at least in our part of Pennsylvania, they can't practice. It's going to be at least another week. So to think that they're going to be ready to play in a showcase tournament in front of college coaches in 2 weeks, not going to happen. And then just the overall the health of the kids. I mean, is it safe to put a pitcher out there that you don't know what he's been doing? And even if he has been training or throwing on the side or whatever, I mean, is he ready to throw 60, 70 pitches in a game? Is it safe to just put him out there? So those are a lot of things that I think you need to take into consideration before we get back on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, that's one of my biggest concerns on our end is that guys are going to want to rush to play. They get hurt. And now instead of missing baseball for 3 months, they've just missed baseball for 8 months. So I think the next few weeks, next month or so is really crucial just to prepare these guys. So Vic, I know you said that Florida's opened up and you guys are, starting to play soon. Do you feel like teams are prepared and ready to go, or are they just show and go?
It's hard to tell because, we don't know what the kids have been doing on their own. And I think all these guys are right. Like playing catch with your brother or your dad can only take you so far. So, I mean, I don't know if some of these teams are ready. I know there's games being played and I think, especially as a pitching coach, that's my main concern as looking at pitchers is have these guys been ramped up the right way and have these guys built their arms up the right way. And I think what this time can do for these guys is kind of give them a little taste of what the college process is like, where, we take time to take our guys into inter squads and then through inter squads, we're still months away from playing our season. And I think what this could do inherently could be a positive where there's so many tournaments being played is that there's more focus on, actually ramping up the right way and actually developing and being with your team more and practicing with your team more instead of just showing up for a tournament and saying, all right, well, we got 4 games today and let's get ready to play. So I think inherently that could be a good thing where guys are ramping up properly. They're kind of in a team environment more often and practicing with their team more and actually getting to know their teammates on their team, travel team, because, all these kids play on different teams. But to answer your question, I don't know because I don't know what the kids have been doing on their own. But I just hope that the coaches are doing their job. And I think they will. That they're doing their job to make sure their kids are ready and keeping them safe to actually be recruited, because you never know. Some of these guys can get hurt and they can, especially during this time, you don't want to take any chances to try to lose an opportunity of getting recruited.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it's kind of interesting to think that in college you prepare for months and months and months to play when you're young. You basically just go from game to game to game. So hopefully that does translate like you're saying.
Yeah, I just to jump in, I think the most important thing they can be doing right now is getting better, right? It shouldn't matter when the recruiting calendar starts, for those guys, those guys need to keep training, keep improving, keep getting better. And whether that's in preparation to games, once the games start, being able to go through that process again, because it's not just we're missing out on the summer season, we're missing out on what we did in high school. The opportunity, this is a unique space to be able to develop and improve and get better and separate yourself. And if you're doing that during this time, whenever it opens up, or whenever you have access to be seen by college coaches, right? Like the schedule shouldn't necessarily be driven by when I can get seen or exposed, but how I can build into like being at my best. Like if you're going to keep getting better, and when it's time and you get seen and you perform, like you're going to create value for yourself. That's the most important thing. Like, can you create value for yourself right now? Because regardless of if you're really good and you get better and improve, regardless of what class you're in right now, your people are going to be interested in you. It doesn't matter, right? Like people are going to be interested if they're thinking you're going to help their program. They'll find room for you if you're someone who really starts to perform at a high level. So using this time to get better, to train, to be prepared for game competition, but like that's the most important thing, regardless of the college exposure side of things, because there's so much unknown there. What you can control is how much you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, Ken, can I just go back to sort of, you asked the question about if you had a 2021 team, just a couple things that I think will tie into what we're talking about here. You know, I think one of the things you're going to have to do is be honest with your players about the number of opportunities that are actually going to be there. Because of what the NCAA has done and allowed us to bring players back, and all of our players gaining that year again, let's face it, I think the number of recruits that we're going to need in that class may be less. So therefore the opportunities are going to be a little bit fewer. But so you have to be honest with them and be real and just say that, look, the opportunities may not exist. But that leads into, you know, you guys all talked about sort of the criteria that are important to each one of those kids for picking a school. The baseball piece is really going to have to take, you know, a back seat, and they need to pick a school or be looking at a school, you know, for all the other reasons that they're interested in: the education, the financial piece, social piece, the distance from home, all of that, size of school. That stuff's really, I think, going to take precedence. And then if the baseball piece happens to work out, great. But during this time where, okay, they're not, the online schooling, at least in my house, has not been fantastic. My guys have done it, but they're not spending hours and hours a day on it. But yet they like to be on the computer. This is a great time for guys to be, you know, using the internet to investigate schools and look at different schools. And you know, there's so much information out there that they can really start to hone that list in, because when it does break, and this is something I don't know if we're going to get into talking about, but everybody's going to be running camps, and these guys are going to be invited to camps. And certainly if that list of schools, you know, is there's 3 schools on there that they want to go to try to attend that camp, to make sure that they put themselves in front of that coaching staff. So that may be something that they've got to do. And hopefully everything works out and they're a player that the school wants. But, you know, take this time to not only improve their game, but spend time, you know, investigating schools, learning about them, and you know, really do their homework on where they might be interested in going.
Yeah, Ken, I'm gonna piggyback off that real quick. I think Wheels said it well, and I thought Mike and Jamie both said it well as well. And I think that's the biggest thing. If I was a 2021 coach, is educating my players on, you know, what are they expecting in their recruiting experience, right? Assuming everything's normal, what are you expecting? What would be your ideal recruiting experience? And then asking them those questions that keeps them from pressing the default button, right? When everything's normal and they're getting all these calls, and it's like call, and I'm okay. If a coach asks you this, oh, I'm looking for the best fit. And I thought Mike was right. And I challenge kids like that all the time. And I say, but what is the best fit for you? So I think it's just digging down deeper and asking better questions and understanding and educating yourself more on what your preferences are, and understanding what you truly are looking for, and doing your research on the school. I think a lot of kids sometimes are faced with so many options, and sometimes they're not, but that they don't really understand their preferences and what they're really looking for, and just digging down deeper. Because I think if kids start and coaches educate their players a little more, you're going to see kids more engaged in those conversations and staying away from pressing the default button, and keeping them motivated to actually do their research and excited for the next step in the process, as opposed to, okay, every coach that calls me, I'm going to tell him the same thing, right? So it's just really get down and educate these kids on what to ask, and challenge their reasoning for why they're asking this question. Because at the end of the day, this time is so useful for what's important. Like I said earlier, to find out what type of investment you're going to be making and what type of investment the school's going to be making with you. So I think that was really good as far as I think it's such a big educational time for everyone. And it helps us understand what the kid's looking for. And it helps us understand what our preferences are too as coaches. So I think that's a big time for this. Is just figure out what your ideal recruiting experience like what do you want it to be? And I think if you can start answering those questions, you can kind of start educating yourself a little better.
Yeah, I think that's dead on. And I've been doing this for like 2.5 years now, and you keep saying the word "you" is the most important piece to that. Everyone wants to go to a school that impresses everyone else, but they don't take the time to think about what they want, and they aren't confident enough in themselves to be okay with that answer. So Chev, you mentioned a little bit ago, there's a lot of information out there, which is good and bad. What are some things that you're starting to see now that as a college coach, as a recruiter, you think might not be worth it, or, to stay away from, or, to definitely take advantage of?
Good question. These kids are just in a tough spot, and if they don't get the right guidance, they're gonna be left. They're going to be left behind. And like I said it before, these are going to be the kids that you're going to see jumping from school to school over the course of the next couple of years. Recruiting at a Division III school, I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it actually is, especially at Keystone, because like you said, it's kind of a blessing and it's a curse. We've had so much success over the past couple of years that everybody is always interested. Everybody's interested, because, when you're talking to a kid, it's always, we could be their third, fourth, or their last opportunity, but they're always interested. So the months and the months and the months of us making these phone calls and talking, they're stringing us along. And at the end of the day, and this is the frustrating part, it always comes down to, we're still Division III. And every time I talk to a kid, I always have that in the back of my head. The longer that we drag these conversations out in the recruiting process, it's always back there saying, we're still Division III. And that's the part that really gets me all the time and I don't think there's enough people like you. You've coached at Keystone. You know what our program is about. You know what we do. I don't think there's enough people that know the levels of Division I and Division II and Division III and the levels within of where some of these kids can actually go and succeed, and helping them choose the right place or giving them the right fit. But it's really frustrating for us, for me certainly, but I think there's got to be more people like you that are guiding these kids who have real-time, real-world experience of what a lot of these programs are about. And I just don't think there's enough of you. And I think that's frustrating from my end. I'm sure it's frustrating for everybody, but I think that's something that we need more of. We need to have more advisors, not so many coaches, but more advisors of advising these kids on what it is to kind of get out there and look throughout all levels of college baseball, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, when you have to stop hitting on the field because you lose too many baseballs from them going over the fence, it's easy to start respecting a program. And the crazy part is that's not even a joke. That's a real thing. So let's talk about some resources. So these kids, they're going to be, Wheels, you mentioned camps. They're going to be pulled in 30 different directions once this opens up. Camps, showcases, going down to Georgia, going down to Fort Myers to play in these national tournaments. Let's kind of talk about, what some useful tools are or situations to use some of these resources. And, what would be some poor ways to use these resources? Wheels, just because you mentioned camps, let's start with you.
You want me to just talk about camps or?
Whatever you want. Team camps.
Well, no, obviously camps are going to be a tremendous resource. If you're even allowed to do them on your campus. I mean, that's going to be something that needs to be tackled. That's a whole other subject of discussion. But, no, I mean, look, let's face it. These guys should be going back to the things that are important for them with regard to size of school, type of school, what they're interested in studying, being realistic about their grades, what they can afford. All those things will help to form sort of that list for them. And I think in a normal year, or when things were not held up like this, you know, they would go out, they maybe have that list, but then all of a sudden they would start to hear from schools that were outside of that list, and schools that they maybe never heard of from before. And not to say that that's not going to happen, but once that list is formed, now that can start to dictate, you know, maybe where they want to go and what types of things they want to invest in. If they have no interest in, you know, trying to play down south, then they shouldn't be investing in showcases or camps and things like that are down there where those coaches are going to be. I think probably from the recruiting side, you mentioned earlier about the budgets being hit, we're probably going to stay more regional with our recruiting. We're probably not going to travel to a lot of the bigger events, maybe one, maybe two, just depending on when we can get out and what's going on. But we're going to stay more regional with our recruiting. So, you know, if there are kids that want to stay in the Northeast that, you know, want to be at a good academic school that's a little bit smaller and close to a big city, well, then they should try to pick and be at some things that we're potentially going to be at. So, you know, the camps, once again, like I said, I think they're going to become more valuable because we're going to try to run them. Yes, we benefit from it financially by having the kids come in, but at the same time, we're looking at it from our budget standpoint, and we don't have to spend money to go out to recruit, and maybe money that we don't have. So we've got to find certain ways to get people on campus. I mean, would it be great to just have guys come for an open tryout and roll up to the field and stuff? Sure, but that's not the way it works. And unfortunately, we have to go the camp route and charge them money. So, but the thing that we're up against is these teams these guys have paid money to play for these teams, you know, and they've already spent that money. And the thing that I'm hearing is the teams have signed up for different events and they can't get their money back because they're going to get a credit. Well, we're going to play at some point, you know, or we're going to give you something at some point. So, you know, there's this whole cash flow thing that everybody's going through right now. So you can't break the bank and trying to put on a number of camps to see guys and charge them, you know, hundreds of dollars. So it's just, there's a lot that goes into that, but I certainly think the camps are going to be valuable. And going to the camps at schools that you're really interested in for all the reasons why you put them on your list, I think becomes important.
Yeah, especially with everything that's going to be going on once this opens up. You know, if you love a school, the best way to get in front of that school is going to be there on camp. So, Mike, before we started recording, you were talking about your guys' team camps. Is that something that you guys use a lot, or is that a new tool you guys are using?
We're just stealing the St. Joe's model and trying to see if we can get it half as good as what they've been running. I think they're the marquee name in terms of team camps in this region, and that's you know, as much to do with the coaching staff and who you see, you know, on this call right now as anything. Like they've created a really good system, a really good product that I think benefits the organizations and players across the board there. So if you got a chance to sign up for a St. Joe's camp, like, here's my shameless plug, go ahead and do it. But I think like, yeah, I mean, you know, Will said it best, and just kind of maybe trying to combine a little bit of like what Chev said too, like the team, whether it's team camp, whether it's an individual prospect camp, it's going to be even more important now to be able to, you know, maybe combine the opportunity to be showcased in front of coaching staffs and to also be able to go visit campuses, right? And those camps allow you to do that, those opportunities to kind of, you know, two birds with one stone. But you can't go to all the camps, right? Like, you're going to be able to follow the schedule, and I think team camps are going to be really valuable, you know, important kind of part of what we do moving forward, right? It's something we're trying to kind of bring back about into our recruiting calendar now. You know, everybody kind of does their things a little bit, you know, differently. We're trying to, you know, make that a really big piece of what we do and our identity in terms of recruiting. And that's great. But if you don't have good advice, like, that's a really good point that's brought up. You don't have good guidance. It's, you know, it's going to be hard to pick which camp to go to, right? Just because somebody's got a really good looking email and looks like it's personally addressed, it might be, but it might not. We don't know. Getting a good advice, getting good guidance, having that conduit there, that person that's going to be the go-between for you, for your family, and for the college programs across the board. Like, that's going to be such an essential piece of these next couple steps in the process, right? Being able to kind of work through, okay, what's a really good opportunity for me to get on campus and be seen, and what's going to be a little bit more of an uphill battle, right? What's maybe, again, like, is this camp a really good fit or is this not? And getting advice from some third parties that I think can give some really good opinions. I think that's going to be as crucial now as ever. So Chev brought that up, and I think you can't give better advice. Good advice right now is the name of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vic, you guys are going to be able to open things up pretty soon. How do you prioritize showcase, team camps, events, tournaments? So, like, what are your guys' philosophy on that?
Well, right now camps are out of the picture for us. Our school is not allowing us to have any camps this summer, no matter what. So, but that's a good question, and I think everything stems back to what's important for us right now, and it's prioritizing our recruiting class and what we need. So I think for me and for us personally, like if we need to kind of hit the ground running recruiting wise and trying to get our 21 class figured out is going to see these guys to play as much as possible. And we're prioritizing it like, hey, let's go watch as many games as possible when we're allowed to, because showcases are great and people do a really good job, but there's nothing like watching kids play a game, and there's so many intangibles that you can see and so much value that's brought through that, and seeing what type of competition they're playing against. So for us, we're prioritizing tournaments and going to see those games and prioritizing what our needs are right now, because we know it's limited. When we get back, it's, everything's limited and we're trying to play catch up. So we're just going to try to get as much as we can in while we can, because we don't know what's going to happen next,
Yeah, for sure. So Chev, this is going to be a strange summer for you because you're not going to be coaching up at the Cape. Do you plan on going after more high school players than you guys traditionally have?
No, there's our recruiting is a little different. I mean, do we try? Of course we do. There's not a lot of high school kids that grow up wanting to go to a Division III school, Northeastern Pennsylvania, Keystone College. We get that, which is why our recruiting style has always been more transfer driven. A lot of it depends on the kid. If they're going to change their step, if they're going to see the writing on the wall, then it's going to get us in the ballpark a little bit more. We're going to have some real conversations about trying to get some more high school kids, but a lot of that is going to depend on, I think, how well they're educated and whether they really do realize what's out there in store for them over the next couple of years, because I really don't think they do. And I don't think any college baseball player does it. I mean, you see it on the portal every day. Everybody's holding out for the transfer exemption. They're just hoping that somebody's got a roster spot for them. So I don't know. It's for me to recruit a freshman or more freshmen is extremely frustrating. So a lot of it's gonna depend on how their attitudes change, and maybe next year, when this is a year in and a lot of the kids start seeing the writing on the wall, that might change then.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would think, at least when I was a D3 coach, usually if guys were interested in playing for you, they're probably not good enough not to be
right, exactly.
So I'm going to look for some big advice from you guys. So hearing that the D1s are going to be in the dead period for the month of July, we have teams slated to go down to Georgia. It's a big investment for the families, flights, hotels, cars, food. So even taking out like tournament fees, it's a few $1,000s for the families. Should we go? Mike, you want to go? You have the most confused face on.
I mean, sure, you can. I'm not getting on record for this. I'm not gonna say one way or the other. So, but I'll start it. That's fine. I think you can. Like I said before, you can find value in any event that you do right now, right? And people that are running these organizations or running these events, they're going to get creative and problem solve in terms of how they can create access for college coaches to view these events, regardless of whether we're there physically present or not. Again, we don't know the details of how that's going to work out, but I guarantee you right now, people are getting very creative with creating that accessibility. And again, whether it's on the recruiting side of things or, hey, I mean, that's for each individual organization to decide, in my opinion. Is going down there and doing that type of event, like, can we create growth and development in our players, right? Can we create good opportunity to go against really good competition and get better from that? Some organizations feel like that, like going down there and being in that type of environment helps their guys get better, and some might not. And so I'm going to go, we're going to go, states' rights here and say it's going to be up to every individual organization to decide whether they want to, kind of figure that out. Like some guys are going to think it's really important part of their process, and some guys, think maybe they need to go in a different direction to take advantage of that week, 10 days that they might spend down there. And that's okay. Either one's going to, it's going to really, again, either one's going to be okay. And I support either side of it.
That was a very good political answer.
Wow. Yeah.
That's such a Mike answer.
Yeah, you should run for office.
So, Chev, I feel like you're not going to run for office anytime soon. What kind of advice do you have for us?
What are you going there for? I think that's the biggest question. Are kids going to back out because you're still in the dead period? Are kids going to back out because there's not going to be enough coaches down there? Are they not going to get the exposure that they want? And I think that kind of eliminates some of the kids that, we always talk about. Are you going down there to compete? Are you going down there to win? And if you're doing that, then you're going down there for the right reasons. I think this is the big separator right now within your organization and a lot of organizations of why are we spending this money? Are we spending this money, this type of money to go down and play just so I can play in front of a certain amount of people? Or am I going down there because I think, the kids that end up playing in those tournaments in Georgia, that's going to say a whole lot about who those kids are, knowing that there's not going to be a whole lot of people down there. If it's me and I'm in Mike's situation or am I in Coach Wheeler's situation, they're kind of the kids that I'm really want to go after because they're doing it for the right reason. It separates those guys from maybe some of the entitlement of I'm going down there just to play in front of a handful of coaches or more coaches.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that I didn't consider too much, to be honest. Wheels, Vic, when you guys have something else?
Well, I wanted to put you on the spot. You've been asking all the questions, but, it's just something that occurred to me, through the conversation and listening to everybody. And back to the advising piece. I know you're a good guy and do a great job with advising your players. Is it going to be easier to have that conversation with them just because of all of this and having kids try to be a little bit more realistic with the level where they can play? And certainly, I'm glad we can't have Keystone on our schedule because they would come and kick our butt. So I am not a fan of, Division I is better than Division III because it's just not the case. But, every kid wants to be Division I. Every kid wants to play the Division I. And like you said, you don't recruit many high school players because they don't really consider that. But so is it, do you think it's going to be easier for you to have the conversation that maybe they should be looking at this program or that program, Division I, II, III, whatever, maybe because of all this going on?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think it depends on a ton of different factors. So most of these families we've been meeting for a long time now. So I think coming into this, they already have a very good idea of where they fall. I think the guys who were, and Chev, I don't mean to hurt your feelings. It's just the easiest way to rank players sometimes is by division. Guys who are fringy Division I players, it's going to be very tough for them, I think, to find Division I homes now. And the big thing we try to do during all this is educate families on what's going on. And Mike, you hit it on the head a bit ago. To me, this all comes down to training. Once this all opens up, it will never be more obvious in the history of baseball who loves baseball and who's been working hard and who just kind of likes it and they get better because they show up for 2 hours of practice that are mandatory. So we've really focused more on the training component than the recruiting, but it just keeps getting tougher and tougher to keep people patient because it's all right. Well, you guys said it, like you have plans for June 1st. Guess what? They're done. You have plans for July 1st. Now they're done. Now it's August 1st. So I guess my big thing is what do you have to keep these guys patient? Does anyone have some sagely advice?
Hope, and just continually being optimistic that baseball is going to return, that their development is going to have to take more of a personal aspect right now. And like you said it the best. And if you're not motivated everybody's fall should be the best fall season that we've ever had if we can get back onto campus. Because if you're not motivated to play baseball come September 1st or whenever your fall season start, then you're going to be able to separate a lot of guys right from there. It takes our jobs should be a hell of a lot easier come September. I hope.
You guys agree with that? Vic, what do you
I definitely agree. The hope piece and the optimism is probably the thing that's going to get you through this. There will be baseball again someday. We're not sure when, but there will be someday. And, look, I don't want to bring up the whole situation of losing the program at Temple, but, when that happened, baseball was taken away. Like, they came in and they said, okay, the program is cut. You can no longer play here. And, you weren't sure when that the opportunity was going to be for the players or for myself to stay in the game. There's been a stoppage here, but nobody has said baseball's over forever. And so we will be back on the field. And look, those people that, can stay strong and get through this and recognize that, all right, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It may be still far down the road, but there's a light down there. I'm just going to keep working towards it and moving towards it. And eventually I'll come out on the other side. They're going to be the ones that are probably going to shine when this is all over with.
Yeah, and we're all, I think the thing too is we're all in this together, right? There's nobody like that. There's no like, okay, certain organizations or certain programs have advantages over other right now. Like it's pretty much across the board right now that, we're all in the same boat now more than ever. So like the patience level, there's nowhere else that anybody can go to get this sped up, right? Like there's nowhere that can happen. Like we, obviously, that's the part that I look at. It's like that part makes it really, a lot more, I don't know if it's easier, but I think maybe put some people at peace. Like you can't go chase it. Like we all have to be patient. We all have to kind of just work through this. This isn't, like Vic has a pretty remarkable story in terms of, I won't make him say it up, but like his career is an awesome career that had its ups and downs based on injury. Like that's a challenge where you're in that, like it's a lonely world where you're having to rehab and come back from some really difficult, kind of personal stuff. And you're watching everybody else play and compete and go through this. And like what Vic was able to do to kind of, have the success at the end of his career that he did going through that, like that stuff's really impressive. And that's, to me, the real test of patience and things like that. Like what we're going through now, I'm not saying it doesn't have its challenges, but we're all working on the same schedule, on that same path. And that's the part, like, I think that hopefully makes it maybe a little bit easier for guys to be patient. It's just realizing like, hey, we're all in this together. We're all dealing with it, on the same timeline.
Well, Vic, it sounds like you have some experience with this to an extent. What do you have for these guys from your personal experience?
Yeah, and thanks for Mike. And don't give me too much credit. But yeah, for me, I think it's just invest in yourself, right? Like, have hope and invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is during this time, you kind of start questioning, everybody is, because we're not doing anything. And all we can do is what we can control and investing in ourselves during this time. So like the question is like, how much do you really care about your career and how much do you really care about what's next? And then I think whatever actions you take is trying to align that with what's coming next and preparing yourself for what's ready for, the next step in the process, whether it's the recruiting process or developing your game. But my biggest advice would be invest in yourself right now and truly ask yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself why you are playing, because it's such a system that we're in where, okay, you go through youth baseball, you go into high school baseball, now the recruiting process comes in and all of a sudden that's your motivation to play. So I think when you start investing in yourself, you start to realize how much you really do love it and how much you really are trying to develop. So my biggest thing is take this time to truly invest in yourself and truly invest in what you're trying to get out of all of this. What like Coach Wheeler said, like, what is the light at the end of the tunnel? What is that for you? And asking yourself that, really investing in yourself and taking that next step in your development without any other distractions like the recruiting process and saying, okay, how can I make myself better in the areas that I'm not? And how can I make those areas that I'm really good at even better and start making those areas a commodity? So my biggest advice is invest in yourself and do the right. If you care, you're going to do the right things to align yourself to do that.
Damn, Vic, that was pretty good. Does anyone have anything else, or I think that would be a good ending point. If not,
That was awesome.
Awesome, guys. Hey, well, I appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you. Stay safe.